Ihr seid hier bei der Online-Ausgabe des 14. Lichter Filmfests Frankfurt International 2021. Mein Name ist Stefan Müller. So, und jetzt geht es um den Eröffnungsfilm des Festivals, der Film Gagarine. Der erzählt die Geschichte des 16 Jahre alten Juri, der nach dem Weltraumpionier Yuri Gagarin benannt worden ist und in einem maroden Sozialbau in der Pariser Vorstadt lebt. Er will dieses Haus unbedingt retten vor dem Abriss. Ich spreche mit den beiden Regisseurinnen Fanny Liatard und Jérémy Trouilh, und zwar auf Englisch. Welcome, Fanny and Jérémy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
First of all, congratulations for a wonderful film.
Thank you.
I hope it's a good sign for the festival and for the opening film Gagarine that it starts this Tuesday with a full moon, a so-called supermoon. In Gagarine, there are a lot of outer space metaphors, like as well how did you develop and write the script for Gagarine?
I start. Okay. We have to tell you how we met this block, this building, Gagarine. It was 6 years ago with Jérémy. We just arrived in Paris because we were not living here in the capital. And some friends invited us to come to this banlieue, Gagarine, to make documentary portraits of the inhabitants of the building, because it was going to be demolished and they wanted to have the point of view of the inhabitants. And when we arrived there, we were very impressed by this architecture, this big red brick block, and then the history of the place. When we heard that Yuri Gagarin, an astronaut, came to inaugurate the place, and also we were impressed by the fact that all the stories of its inhabitants were going to disappear. So we decided it would be great to make a fiction here. And we started by a short film, a 15-minute short film that we made really with the inhabitants of the place, meeting them during months and listening to their stories. And we got inspired, of course, by their stories and by the fact of this astronaut coming in this place in the 60s. And so it was a first film. And then we spent years writing the script in the same way, spending time in the neighborhood and seeing the inhabitants going away little by little. And we had the chance to shoot the movie in the empty building just before the demolition.
Okay, when was that?
When it really finished at the end of last year, 2020. It really now there is nothing
left of the area.
Yeah.
So those housing areas in the outskirts of Paris do remind me of similar areas in Eastern Berlin. At the time they were built in Berlin, like the 70s, they became really popular amongst young families in the former GDR. What is the so-called red belt around Paris?
Well, it's an utopia that was created in the 60s in France at a time that many people lived in shanty town places, didn't have a roof above their head. And what you can see on the archives that begins the movie of Yuri Gagarin inaugurating the place is a great joy among the inhabitants, because also there was the joy of having the opportunity to get hot water and heating, and also, of course, the utopia of a living together society, a society that would put together in a huge building as Gagarine 400 apartments together, where there would be a reunion of social diversity and cultural diversity. And this was created in many places around Paris at the time, because it was communist. And so the dream of social diversity was also carried by this political view. What happened then during 50 years is that those places, little by little, they've been abandoned by the authorities and the politics, and more people, fragile and poor, were put it there. And what happened at the end is that a place like Gagarine was getting a bad reputation, where people wouldn't want to go because it was poorly built, and because it was a place where the people at the margin of the society would go. And what we tried to do with the film is to give a tribute to all the people who are so much more than this fragility. You know, they also are a real community with strong links, beautiful solidarity among them. And this is a strength for our main character, Yuri.
Yeah, you mentioned it in the first scene. We see the Russian astronaut, or the cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin in Paris. That was in 1963, 2 years after his spectacular space flight, 60 years ago, on the 12th of April 1961. And yeah, you mentioned it, that there has been obvious a connection between France at that time and the Soviet Union. But that, yeah.
Yeah, by the connection between the Communist Party, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It was well, the Communist Party was very strong in France at this time, and architecture is one of the results of this time. But it's not only from communist ideas. The architecture, it really in the 60s was there were big waves of migration, and many shanty towns around Paris, people living in really poor situations. So les grands ensembles, we say that the big blocks, social housing projects, they were an answer, a very positive answer to, I guess, to this situation.
My favorite scene is the one with the lightning stars, where Yuri shows his girlfriend his world, his outer space he created as one of the last inhabitants, or at least the last inhabitant. It's a magical moment in the film, I would say. Can you describe it, like who had the idea to do it like that?
Sorry, I'm not sure if we're talking about the scene when they go up in the crown, or the very last scene of the film.
In the middle, more like
in the middle, in the crown. Yeah, well, so Fanny and I, we spend a lot of time. Fanny, tu entends juste que ça sonne? Sorry, someone is ringing on the door. I'm so sorry. We do all together with Fanny, so we spend a lot of time talking, and also imagining the world of our characters. And what we understood is that Gagarine was also going to be a film about languages, like a Babel Tower, where all the inhabitants, sometimes they don't speak exactly the same language, but they look for ways to communicate. So there is Diana, who was this speech on the roof of the building, and she says, if the aliens come here, there will be a fight because we don't speak the same language, and when you don't speak the same language, you fight. And what we try to do is to find ways for our characters to communicate, even though they don't have the same language. And Yuri, one of the language he finds is with the lights. So it's his first way of getting intimate with Diana. She's in the crown alone, and is in his building alone. And by lights and Morse code, they get a way to talk to each other. and this becomes a metaphor all around, all along the film. And so we get to this point at the middle of the film where Yuri and Diana, they are in the crowd together, and they look at the building and the rest of the city. And Yuri has this speech saying that in all the big cities, there is a suburb, and it's the same in space. Around all big stars, there is a suburb of small stars, and it's thanks to those small stars that the big stars survives. And we have faith in this image that is quite a metaphor for all the fights that Yuri is taking to save his building and to make it be seen by the others.
How did you find him, Alseni, the actor of the main character Yuri, and which background did he bring in?
Yeah, I was saying we have this hope of finding our Yuri in Gagarine in the blog. So we started a cast in the neighborhood and then in the city of Ivry, where we shot the film. And then we because we knew that an experimented actor of this age, we had not a lot of choice in France, so it was what we call casting sauvage, like wild cast, going in high school, in the street, and try to find him somewhere. And it's him that he sent an email to the cast director because a friend of him just gave him the flyer of the cast, and he had never played before, nothing, but he has just this strong willing of being an actor. And the first time he came to the casting, he was already amazing how he looked like our Yuri, because he had this body of a hero already, but the eyes of a child with a lot of dreams. And it was exactly what we were looking for, someone with this between childness and adultness, and with this big inside world, I would say, someone that when we see in you watch his eyes, you can imagine he has all this imagination. And then we worked a lot with him on all the scenes, and because also he was sharing the acting with experimented actor as Lina Koudry, who plays Diana, and Farida Rawaj, but also with former inhabitants of the block. So it was a really interesting mix, and we love to do this mix with Jérémy in our films. And Alseni, he was just amazing, and we believe he will be a great actor.
You mentioned Lina, the main female character. Where did you find her? Lina Koudry?
She's a great actor. She had played in Papicha before Gagarine, which was in Cannes 2 years ago, and she received a César for this role. Actually, we worked with Judith Chalier, the casting director, who casts new actors, but also works with the young generation of French actors. And she had worked with Lina in a TV show in France called Les Sauvages, and she knew she was amazing, and so she presented her to us, and it was kind of new for us to understand that an actor his job is also to be able to fit in someone completely different from him. Here, Lina, she had to become a young teenage girl from the Roma society. She's not from the Roma community, and she's 27 when Alseni, for instance, is 18. And her experience, her 10 years working as an actress, really helped for carrying all the emotions in the film. And so, yeah, it was a very nice experience for us to meet her and to get to work with her.
And all the rest of the cast, the others are amateurs as well, the most of them?
Finnegan Oldfield, Denis Lavant, Farid Arouaj, and Jamil McCraven, they had played in many, Denis Lavant in many films, and so they were more experimented. But yes, the whole the collective scene when you see the eclipse and at the end of the film, the goodbye to the building, we really worked with a cast team to find the former inhabitants and convince them to be part of the film, because it was really important for us, and we were so rooted in this neighborhood. So it has a lot of sense for us for the tribute we wanted to pay to this place, to have all the inhabitants saying goodbye to their own building. So these collective scenes, they were really emotional, and it was funny because for example, the workers in the film, some of them, they had lived in some apartments where we could still go when we were shooting. We were shooting in the empty building. So for some of them, they came back in their former apartments and just recognizing the tapestry on the walls and saying, "Oh, it was here. There was the table, and here it was my room," and it was a very emotional moment when they came back inside.
So have you been able to show the film to this audiences in France, and how were the reactions till now?
Well, unfortunately, because of the COVID and the lockdown in France, we've not been able to show the film to the inhabitants and most of the team of the film yet. When the cinema will reopen, that will be the first thing we're going to do. We hope it will be soon. There is actually a small cinema in the city where we shot really next to the former Gagarine housing project. So it will be here that will make the big premiere. Normally, we would have gone to Cannes with all the inhabitants and the team, and well, it wasn't possible because of the COVID. So we decided that we would bring Cannes to Ivry-sur-Seine, where Gagarine was, and we can't wait to share it with the inhabitants.
Your film reminded me of films by Ken Loach from the UK, and the love he also has for his characters. What's your next project you're working on?
Thank you first for the compliment. And then we were currently writing another film. What we can say is that it will always be rooted in a territory and with a social background, and because meeting people and from a place, it's really a motor for us and a motivation to make films. So there will be always this part of the work, but also we are now writing a film with more science fiction, or I would say more magic maybe than Gagarine. And now we're writing for another country. We hope to make it in English. So that's it for now.
What's your comment on this year's big winner of the Oscars, Nomadland, and its director Chloe Zhao?
Well, we've not been able to watch Nomadland so far, but Chloe Zhao's work is very interesting because she's been working with non-professional actors, so it's quite inspiring to see that a work of this kind gets such a big audience, and yeah, she seems so talented. We can't wait to watch it.
Thanks a lot, Fanny Liatard and Jérémy Trouilh, editors, directors of the movie, which is the opening film of the Lichter Filmfest, Gagarine.
Thank you so much for the talk.
Thank you very much.